Welcome, educators. You know, between lesson planning, grading, and just trying to keep 30 kids focused, teaching is already an Olympic sport. But what happens when you throw a massive language barrier into the mix? Every year, schools are filling up with new faces, and increasingly, those faces belong to kids who have just arrived from overseas. So today, in this explainer, we're exploring a seriously powerful new tool. We're going to look at a real-world pilot program in Japan that's using AI to break down these language barriers and help these kids find their footing in a totally new environment.
So, let's dive right into our lesson plan for today. We've got 4 key areas to cover. Number 1, the classroom language barrier. Number 2, real-time AI translation. Number 3, the side-by-side strategy. And finally, number 4, tech versus student effort.
Starting off with Section 1, the classroom language barrier and the limits of traditional language support.
Now, as educators, you already know firsthand the intense challenge of trying to reach every single student. It's especially tough with those who are learning the host country's language for the very first time. To really put the sheer volume of this issue into perspective, let's look at Kyoto. Last year alone, 458 elementary and junior high students in that city required pull-out guidance in core language skills just to survive their daily school life. I mean, think about the logistics behind that number. You're talking about finding and hiring specialized translators, coordinating all those pull-out sessions, and straining budgets that are honestly already spread way too thin. It's an enormous administrative load that stretches most public school systems absolutely to their breaking point.
And the traditional approach? Well, it usually involves pulling these students completely out of their regular classrooms. Take one Nepalese student featured in this pilot program, for example, who slips away for weekly one-on-one help. Now, while these sessions are totally well-intentioned and the teachers are highly dedicated, they really only cover the absolute basics. And here's the harsh reality. 1 or 2 lessons a week are far from enough for full classroom integration. Just imagine the emotional toll on a young student feeling completely isolated from their friends during those pull-out sessions. They know they're missing out on the core curriculum, falling behind in math, science, and history, simply because they just don't have the vocabulary yet.
That brings us to Section 2, real-time AI translation. Scaling human effort through technology. So what's the fix? What's really interesting is how a 5th grade class in Kyoto is solving this exact bottleneck using a brand new AI-powered pilot program. Let's break down the mechanics because it literally changes the entire dynamic of the room. Step 1, instead of relying on clunky translation apps where you have to stop your teaching flow to type or process a single sentence, the teacher just wears a small microphone. Step 2, the AI listens and instantly converts that continuous speech into text. And Step 3, the system flashes those translations almost instantly. You get to stay physically dynamic, right? You can walk around, engage with the kids, and the flow of the lesson remains completely uninterrupted. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer scalability of the tool. It offers immediate support for languages like English, Korean, Nepali, and a dozen more. This radically expands the support you can offer. It provides real-time access to a dozen languages simultaneously without ever pausing the lesson. Think about what that actually means for your modern classroom. You could have a room full of students from totally different linguistic backgrounds, and they are all grasping the complex concepts of your science or history lesson at the exact same time. It's a real game changer for creating a truly inclusive environment. Professor Kuliyasui, who co-developed this system, really hits the nail on the head here. He says, technology has made something possible that education alone could not do before. We all know that delivering individualized human support takes a tremendous amount of time, energy, and resources. But this AI system, it's successfully delivering that individualized support at a scale that traditional human effort simply can't match. It's a true force multiplier, and frankly, it's exactly the kind of innovation that actively helps relieve teacher burnout by taking that immense translation burden right off your shoulders. Moving on to Section 3, the side-by-side strategy, designing tech for true language acquisition. Now, you might be wondering, how do we make sure this tech actually helps students learn the language, rather than just acting as a permanent crutch? Well, when this pilot first launched, teachers noticed a pretty worrying trend. If students only saw the translation in their native tongue, they understood the lesson, sure, but they weren't actually learning Japanese. So, following that direct feedback from the classroom, the developers made an absolutely critical pedagogical update. The system, which can actually read text written on the blackboard, by the way, now displays the host language on the left and the translated version on the right, side by side. It seems like a small change, right? But it makes a massive educational difference. Having both languages physically displayed together is essential for moving between the two. Seeing both simultaneously is absolutely critical for students transitioning into the host language. It taps right into the cognitive process of language acquisition. Instead of just passively taking in the info, the student is actively building a mental bridge between their native tongue and their new environment. They are mapping the vocabulary they already know to the completely unknown characters they are hearing and seeing, which fosters genuine language learning with every single lesson.
And that leads us to our final part, Section 4, Tech versus Student Effort, Finding the Pedagogical Balance. Ultimately, bringing this tech into your classroom creates a really delicate balancing act between short-term inclusion and long-term reliance. The city's Board of Education sees the immediate promise of AI as a powerful force for inclusion for kids who haven't learned the language yet, but they strongly warn that long-term reliance could actually weaken a student's intrinsic motivation to learn the host language. I mean, from a psychological standpoint, human beings are wired for efficiency, aren't we? If a screen always flawlessly translates everything for a student, that urgent biological need to adapt totally disappears. The struggle of communicating is often what drives fluency, and completely removing that struggle can unintentionally stunt a student's linguistic growth.
So let's summarize what we've learned and how you can apply this to your daily life as an educator. First, AI is extremely helpful for newcomers. It removes that immediate communication barrier and drastically lowers the anxiety of a brand new school. Second, long-term reliance definitely risks student motivation. And third, its use requires careful consideration and balance. Think of this as the new classroom contract. Educators have to actively manage the AI so it acts as a temporary bridge, getting students over the initial shock of a new curriculum, but making absolutely sure it doesn't end up replacing their own active effort to learn. Which leaves us with a profound question for your own teaching practice. As our student populations continue to diversify, how will you balance the sheer power of AI with your students' own effort? Technology can clearly make the impossible possible, but it's ultimately up to you, the educator, to draw the line between assisting your students and enabling them to learn independently. Keep that delicate balance in mind as you design your future lesson plans. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I hope it gives you some fantastic insights to bring back to your schools.